As rural Americans, we have a unique understanding of and connection to the land. Whether we ranch, farm, log, or simply recreate, what we do today determines our tomorrow. As stewards of the land, it's our duty to ensure that our children and grandchildren can enjoy the outdoors in a similar manner that was afforded us. Join the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and ensure the future of elk, other wildlife, their habitat, and our hunting heritage. Visit rmef.org today.
Thanks once again to our friends at Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and welcome to another episode of According to Flint. And honored to have this week's guest, Major Mark Nutsch. The name may not sound familiar, but the story probably does. He is one of the authors of a new book, Swords of Lightning, Green Beret Horse Soldiers, and America's Response to 9/11. If you've seen or heard of the movie 12 Strong, those are the guys we are speaking of, and Mark Nutsch, played by actor Chris Hemsworth. He's got an amazing story, and I know on these podcasts we have anywhere from athletes to rodeo cowboys, bull riders, world champions, country music singers that a lot of people consider heroes to them. But our friend Mark Nutsch is a true hero and gives a lot of credit to the people that he worked with in their exploits as special forces going into Afghanistan, the first ones in after 9/11. It's an intriguing story, and we hope you enjoy it. Welcome to another episode of According to Flint, but first, this from our friends at Pendleton Whiskey. Well, welcome to episode number 48, According to Flint. And as I've said, honored to have this gentleman on, a guy that, happy to say he is my friend. Not a longtime friend, but we're good enough to use that title. It's Major Mark Nutsch. We talked about it. The new book is Swords of Lightning, Green Beret Horse Soldiers, and America's Response to 9/11. I have it right here. And Mark, honored you personalized my book. This is going on the shelf after I wear out the pages. Thank you for the book. I appreciate that. Good to see you.
Well, thank you, Flint. Thanks for having me on again. It's been a short couple weeks. It seems like since we were sitting together at the Fort Worth NFR on your show.
Yeah, that was a pleasant surprise. Our mutual friend Scott Grover, rodeo announcer, PBR announcer, reached out and told me about you, and I thought, too good to be true, come to the show. And you brought Bob Pennington as well, who's in on the book. And all I remember thinking is we had our 15-minute TV segment or whatever it was, and when you left, I said, we need to talk longer. It's been, now that all of a sudden it's been a year and a half, and we need to talk longer. So
yeah, it's time to talk. So yeah, we're having a great run. Our bourbon brand, Horse Soldier Bourbon, has just been blowing up over the last 6 years with that. And now Bob and I co-authored our book about our Special Forces team's historic unconventional warfare mission right after 9/11. We did that with the award-winning author, Jim DeFelice, who authored American Sniper and about a dozen other bestsellers. And, finally having the book out now. So we're doing a little book promotion along with tasting some award-winning double gold Horse Soldier bourbon.
Well, of course, everyone became familiar with the Horse Soldiers and the Special Forces group that led the way into Afghanistan with the movie 12 Strong. And so when this book, we need the firsthand account, because now the movie 12 Strong also based on a book, but correct me if I'm wrong, not necessarily the firsthand account of what went on, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Author Doug Stanton wrote a book called The Horse Soldiers a number of years ago. We were kind of busy when he was preparing that book, busy in terms of my special forces team, the Operational Detachment Alpha 595, as we were known officially, part of the 5th Special Forces Group, we had just come back from Afghanistan, and we already knew we were going to spearhead operations into Iraq. So we're focused on the next mission, the next deployment. And we were asked to interview with Doug, and did that briefly. And he interviewed a number of other folks. But that good book. But there is so much more to the story, and that's why we finally wanted to get out our own book, Swords of Lightning. That book, Horse Soldiers, was made into the movie Hollywood portrayal 12 Strong, and they capture the core aspects in the Hollywood version of our team splitting up. And again, so much to that story. They really only portray about the first half of that incredible historic mission right after 9/11. They show how our team split up. They show how Special Forces works with local partners. But again, so much more to the story. We're hopeful perhaps down the road there'll be a mini series. From our perspective, over a nearly 3-month long mission, you could do multiple episodes, if you will.
That's one thing that when there are Hollywood's Hollywood, movies get made, and I hear people all the time say, well, I think people understand it's Hollywood, and it's not completely true. Listen, I live in Montana, and I deal with the show Yellowstone. People don't understand it's Hollywood. But you know what I think when I watch certain movies that I'm familiar with the backstory, I think the thing that gets lost in it is any sort of time frame, because it's got to take place in 2 hours in a theater, and it feels like all of this happened in 3 days.
Right.
And that gets lost in there.
Yeah. So our team was one of the first inserted to Northern Afghanistan after the attacks of 9/11. And, in summary, we were 24 days on horseback in combat with our Northern Alliance militia allies. Just an incredible story, working with our CIA partners, our other Special Forces and Special Operations elements that were all supporting that mission of my 12 guys on the ground with a handful of CIA officers. And then you have the incredible challenge of working with our Northern Alliance partners, getting to understand them, build collaborative relationships, partnerships. Can we trust each other? And then uniting 3 different ethnic factions together. That's the real magic of what our Special Forces and CIA team did, was we brought 3 different ethnic leaders together. And by doing that, getting them to sit in the same room and recognize that they had more in common with each other, and that they were stronger if they would unite together. We raised up a militia army of nearly 5,000 fighters. 3,000 of those were on horseback. It was just amazing to see 3,000 horses on a 21st century battlefield, and be in, the glue that's trying to keep this incredible force together and leverage, again, literally think of our own American history, frontier cavalry that I had read about, and now they're armed with 20th century weapons. And then our team brings in 21st century technology like night vision goggles and GPS and satellite capable radios to coordinate airstrikes and a resupply of lethal and non-lethal aid. And it was incredible, and an honor to be at the center of that and lead an incredible team of Americans in those challenges.
Yeah. So obviously, because of the familiarity with the culture of Afghanistan, we can talk more about that, which is completely different than what our Western culture is. You're familiar with the different factions and the resistance trying to defeat the Taliban there anyway. So the goal going in is let's gather them, let's ally with them to try and do this. You had to be a little familiar, but did you realize that the horse culture was as big as it was in what they did? Did you know going in that?
We had just, literally a couple days warning. There was not a lot known as the plan was being made literally in flight. And, we're being asked to study what could be done. And the incredible sergeants on our special forces team, we started reading everything we could get, as you're submitting questions up through the chain of command to our intelligence officers and sergeants. There were no answers coming back. And so we're reading on your own. It's self-study. You're reading National Geographic maps and tourist maps and looking things over. And as we were trying to read anything we can, we missed a critical article about General Dostum that was written, I think, in like 1998 or 99. I've since, gotten a copy of it somewhere in archives, but it was an article done in depth about him using horse-mounted cavalry fighting against the Taliban, and we kind of missed that. So it wasn't until
that would have been handy. That would have been handy to know. Yeah,
would have been handy, but it wasn't until we met with our CIA counterparts right hours before they were to board a helicopter and fly in, and that intelligence picture was very gray. We joke about, when I brief military officers now today, we joke about our entire operations order that the military gave you at that time was literally 2 pages, 8.5 by. It was just so open-ended. And, as we're studying about these groups, the intelligence picture wasn't clear. And then we started to have a brief conversation with these CIA teammates, and they're like, well, no, he's looking forward to meeting you. And do you want to talk with him briefly? And that's when they were told, because they were about to get on that helicopter, be prepared to ride local animals, so we're thinking, okay, this is a temporary in nature kind of thing. It'll be a one-time move. It wasn't until we got on the ground and the reporting from that CIA team coming back, and then they're prepping us, that now you got to be prepared to ride horses. That is going to be the main mode of getting around. So, we have some of the best best equipment, some of the best trained special operators in the world. And, but none of us were anticipating fully that we would ride horseback. I had joked about it with the guys, cause it was a way to build rapport for me. I'd been in half a dozen Muslim countries, prior to 9/11. I'd been in Kuwait and rode horses with Kuwaiti sheikhs, and they have a horse culture. I'd been to Jordan and rode horses there at the historic Petra, the historic city. They portray that in Indiana Jones, when he's riding the horses through the narrow canyon, and then you're exposed into this valley, and just incredible scene. I rode horses there. I rode horses in Uzbekistan prior to 9/11. So for me, it was a way to build rapport and relax and get to know my counterparts a little more. So I joked with my teammates before we flew in that, at some point we're going to play this traditional Afghan game called Buskachi, where it's the goat grab game.
Yeah.
Most people would remember that. They portray it in the film Rambo and some other movies, and I did. Eventually, I got to play Buskachi several times on that trip and other subsequent trips back to Afghanistan. But their horse culture, we were able, I grew up in a Flint Hills region of central Kansas. I grew up on a ranching family. We rodeoed, through Little Britches in high school and for 2 years at the college level for Kansas State University. And, that horse culture that I grew up around, here, who knew I was going to need that kind of background on this incredible mission right after 9/11. And it was a way for us to bond as well. Our Afghan allies did not expect us to to share the hardships of riding horses in the mountains. They didn't expect us to sleep out on the ground. All of these things, we did that went towards building rapport every day, sharing the austere field conditions, sleeping on the ground, or the best Holiday Inn Motel 6 you could find in a cave or a building somewhere. And one meal a day, my teammates and I lost about 25 pounds of body weight in the first 30 days. You're just burning so many calories. We were like the mail in the Pony Express. Yeah. They ride stallions culturally there. They're 13 to 14 hands tall typically. And, we average 200 pounds of body weight, plus another 50 pounds of lightweight gear. The average Afghan, even the Uzbeks that were more taller or bigger in stature, 150 to 170 pounds, and they don't have near the gear that we do. So you're wearing out these horses, and it became horse roulette. Each morning, an Afghan is given up his horse for my teammates or I to ride for that move. And, then you'd have that horse for a few hours, and then you're being put on another horse. And what I've learned, whether you're at a team roping, in across Kansas or Nebraska, or you're helping neighbors gather cattle or something, if you're new to the group, in particular in Afghanistan, they made great sport of giving us the rankest, worst horses that nobody wanted to ride. And I wish I had a video camera. We started calling it the Buck Out Show. Every morning, you're in the mountains. We started around 8,000 feet in elevation, and we're coming down generally as a movement, but it's a little frosty. There may have been a light snow overnight, or, the water in the streams frozen up a little bit. And so it's a little cold, and you're rolling out of your sleeping bag, and you're packing up and getting ready to go on the day. And, you're cinching up on that horse and getting on them. And whether it was an Afghan or an American, these stallions would suddenly just come uncorked and go bucking out through the crowd. And Afghans and Americans got bucked off. Hell, I got bucked off.
If you were at a team roping, somebody'd throw a hat under him or a bucket under him. That's just the rules.
That's the rule. Get it going. Let's start this show.
In that process, coming from where you came from, and your guys that you went in with, culturally within your group, you had to be the most experienced, didn't you? As far as horse, so that had to put you. They had to look to you in all of that, right? Yeah.
And that very first ride, that very first morning, they do a good job of portraying that scene in 12 Strong. We're meeting with General Dostum, and he's laying out a map, and he's explaining where the Taliban and the enemy are, and just this fire hose of information that he's feeding us. And then I ask him, to take us to his mountain headquarters and show us the Taliban. And he just says yes. And he finishes up the meeting, and he's like, let's go. 6 of us are going to ride with him and follow very quickly. So we're scrambling. I'm leaving a contingency plan with Bob and Paul, our team sergeant. The 6 of them are going to stay. And then the other 6 guys, we had trained to split our team into 2 6-man sections. So my half of the team is quickly reconfiguring gear, and what do you keep and what do you take? And you're pulling, readjusting bags really quickly. We thought we would have some more time. And then General Dostum quickly mounted up again and rode off. And so through my training, I'm like, when we conduct our Robin Sage, our unconventional warfare course that all of our guys have been through, that portrays these kind of challenges, a hard lesson I learned is, once we've linked up with them and we've established rapport, you've got to stay with them. And so here, my leader, that's my mission, is riding off,
Takes
off, and the six of us are scrambling. I'm fighting that urgency of we've got to go, and we got to go right now with, hey, the safety of my teammates. And I had to step back and be trail boss, and help them get mounted up, and our teammates help them get mounted. And then once you're on board, man, these horses are in constant movement pretty much, so you're getting them to turn them in tight circles and just keep the group together. I had one of my other younger sergeants was from South Dakota. He had probably the next level of horseback riding experience, and he was part of that initial 6-man team that moved. So the two of us could help coach the other guys. And, but he had rodeoed and ridden horses a little bit. He's from Sioux native heritage.
Mm-hmm.
And, but that was 8 years in his past, I'd been on a horse, back home a few months or weeks before we deployed. For him, it had been 8 years. Bob and the other guys, they joke about they had quarter horse training, when mom and dad took them to a Walmart when they were a kid and threw some quarters in the bucking machine right out in front of the store, So you're trying to figure a lot of things out, literally right there at the trot and the gallop, things like, how do you carry your rifle? What gear do I leave on my back or on my body? Because if you wear those little, there's nothing little about them. We've dropped our main packs that were 100-pound rucksacks going in for insertion. So we've dropped most of that gear, but you still had what we call a 3-day assault pack that's on your back. Well, now you're really top heavy. You're riding the traditional Afghan saddles. Their stirrups are not adjustable. So initially we're very, again, the Western way of thinking of somebody just loaned me their horse and their saddle, right? What's the first thing you do when you borrow a horse at one of these rodeos or roping competitions? I'm going to adjust the stirrups, right?
Yeah.
So the stirrups are not adjustable. They're on, it's a wooden saddle with a saddle horn and a deep cantle on the back. That's almost uncomfortable holding you in, but it's just covered with a carpet, and then it's a fixed rope running down from the frame of that wooden saddle to a heavy bronze stirrup or a brass stirrup. And so they were too short, and for us, right? The average height 6 foot. Your knees are up too high, too uncomfortably. And so these are all things we're having to deal with. Your hiking boots with the lugs may not fit so well within the brass stirrup. So there's a lot of safety things right away, where you're being too top heavy and you're trying to coach them to stay in the middle of it. And let's walk. Let's just walk now. Well, maybe, okay, can we trot? But that's it. It's just a trot with that gear on and everything. And again, trying to balance catching up with the leadership and the general versus the safety of my guys. And we just had to slow down and figure it out, with the gear that you're carrying, what you could leave behind. Can I trust the 10 Afghans he just left us as security? Because we have language barriers, and they're anxious to catch up, and they're encouraging us to hustle up. And so it just, the guys, my teammates, did an incredible job learning how to ride horseback in combat for the first time. That first move, we didn't know how far it was going to be. It turned out to be 4 or 5 hours. General Dostum had warned us there was enemy in the area, or that some people would not be happy that the Americans were there. So we're, in the midst of all that, how do I quickly ensure my team's, our tactics, that we spread out, that we knew there were mines. And so you're trying to follow the horse in front of you, literally, because that's the trail, that's safe, or you hope it's safe. and having to cross some streams and just be prepared to fight, to quickly dismount the horses and have to fight potentially. So all these things are going through my head, and discussing it with our team as, the six of us as we're moving. And
it's, and I'm not making light of it, but in a sense, you have guys that are trying not to die on a horse. And in the meantime, you're not trying not to die.
Right.
All of this, hey, I want to backtrack a little bit because I'm aware of it, but the beginning of your book says it in a good way. When you and I just now, and the movie started talking about the 12 of you went in. And I know a lot of people initially, when I had heard the story, like, why the hell would we just send 12 guys? Well, you can't, after 9/11, you can't just conventionally invade an entire country. It was such a unique situation.
Yeah.
We knew bin Laden was behind it, but you knew there were people that wanted to defeat the Taliban. And that's really the definition of special forces, is to take on things like you did in a very unconventional way.
Yes.
I know that's a minor, I just wanted to backtrack on that. That's why you guys went in. That's the definition of what special forces do, right?
Yeah, is to work. We conduct all these missions in special forces by, with, or through a local partner. In the case of this unconventional warfare mission, we had to support General Dostum, but we had incredible autonomy and authority. I could go anywhere in the country I needed to. The mission was to kill or capture Taliban and Al Qaeda literally wherever we found them, and to work towards toppling the Taliban regime through these resistance groups. And it's just incredible mission. We go into more of that detail in this book, Swords of Lightning, that's come out now. To get into some of those situations a little more that maybe are kind of glossed over in the movie, or just in the time frame we have, aren't really discussed. I get asked all the time about the horses. I ended up riding a buckskin stallion. It was about 15 hands. We finally got some new, some bigger horses. We tried to buy horses so that they would be dedicated to our group. The very first night that report went out that we were on the ground and we had just conducted a move, and I need 20 sets perhaps of tack. And funny little thing, I wrote that out of, hey, I want Australian saddles, and I explained why, with the adjustable stirrups and their lighter weight, versus the team rope and saddle, right?
Yeah.
And I ordered 20 sets of headstalls and blankets and breast collars, and I need saddle bags and everything. And I literally said, go see John at the Clarksville, Tennessee Farmers Co-op, because in the days before I deployed there out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, we had a few days, some false starts. We didn't deploy immediately. And so I had some time and was thinking about the horses aspect a little bit. And I happened to be in the Farmers Co-op, and I saw 6 of those Australian saddles on the rack in there. So the message to my military commanders are, hey, go see John at the Clarksville, Tennessee Farmers Co-op and order 20 Australian saddles and tack. And I even said, if you're not sure what I need, call my dad at this number and just tell him Mark needs.
And that was from Afghanistan. You're in Afghanistan sending.
Oh yeah,
these.
that was from
hilarious.
Afghanistan sending that mission. So there's people scrambling to get us saddles, and they didn't come. And then finally, after 24 days, I mean, I was raising this issue all the time. Our CIA teammates, they were requesting the saddles through their chain of command also. They airdropped incredible logistical effort to get all kinds of supplies to us, like horse feed. and cold weather gear, for a militia army of thousands. We need cold weather jackets and clothes and boots. I mean, some of these guys are running around in tennis shoes and sneakers, with no socks. And now winter's coming on. And so it was about helping take care of them as well. But they finally airdropped the saddles into us after we were no longer riding horses. So
yeah, that's what, like I say, that's the stuff that isn't covered,
Yeah. We got through that cultural stigma, after a few days, and it's injuring my guys because of their knees being too high. And finally, part of that was their gear is pretty primitive and worn out. And you would go to step up on that saddle and you'd break a stirrup right then and there, or a cinch strap. So we're using field repair, field craft. We're using parachute bundles and parachute cord to make adjustable stirrups. But I had to get past that. Hey, this is somebody else's saddle, to now, hey, my guys are using this and it's enough of a safety issue that we're cutting the stirrup straps, and we're making our own adjustable stirrups with the parachute cargo straps that have been dropped in and things like that.
That's a rare occurrence for me, that the stirrups are too short. Usually.
Yeah.
Even my daughters, my one daughter, I'm embarrassed. I always got to shorten the stirrups if I get in her saddle. So rare for me. So,
yeah.
You didn't lose a guy, did you, through this whole thing?
That's a double-edged question.
Yeah.
I didn't lose one of the Green Berets
right.
With us, but hundreds of our Afghan allies were killed in the conduct of that operation, and hundreds more were injured. Mm-hmm. A number of the injured after we liberated the region, and they've now been brought out of the mountains to a hospital and clinic, and they recover. They would come to thank my teammates and I for saving their lives. But it was very austere, savage, battlefield medicine. I'm talking field amputations and mass casualties, and you're triaging them the best we can, supporting our special forces medics that are doing some field surgery. But so there's the Afghans. But then towards the end of our mission on November 25th of 2001, one of our CIA teammates was killed, Johnny Michael Spann. And he became known as the first American killed over there after 9/11. But we were fortunate, to survive it, Clint.
Yeah. You guys, and again, I have read a little bit in your book, and it makes a good point in that when we picture special forces guys, we do. I mean, the reality is we picture Chris Hemsworth, who played you in the movie, but you're just guys. Your husbands, your dads. You are. My interpretation is you use this more than this. Just a common, really bunch of guys. Could you tell your wife what you were doing at all?
They knew that we were gonna deploy. As I said, for our wives on the team, we had 3 false starts. Where you've said your goodbyes and we've left and we've gone to the airfield, and then something happens with the plane, or it didn't come or whatever. And after you wait there for a period of time, and the command finally says, okay, the plane's not coming today, go back home. So now you're, a buddy's dropping you off back at the house, or you're calling the wives to come back in and pick you up. So this is an emotional roller coaster up and down for them. You couldn't, they're smart women. Most of them have jobs outside the home. 10 out of the 12 of us on the team were married. Our average age was 32 for the guys. But out of those 10 couples, 9 of the couples had 2 or more kids. For me personally, I had 2 young stepsons that were 4 and 3 years old. And my daughter was a high risk. My wife was a high risk pregnancy with our first daughter. She was about 6.5 months along. And the wives, I can't say enough good things about the wives on that team and in special forces. Who do you rely on? They keep these teams very compartmented. And so can you imagine what it was like for these wives? What is everybody talking about after 9/11? In particular in that Fort Campbell community, a number of the wives had, my own wife included, as a special education school teacher. She's got a job, and her fellow employees are going, "Hey, isn't your husband in special forces? Hey, what's going on? What's going on? What are they going to do?" These wives couldn't even tell their coworkers that we were already gone, or that where we had gone. Now, everybody suspected it was Afghanistan would be the ultimate objective, but, we didn't fully know the details of how and when we would get in there for that.
Yeah.
So the wives had to rely on each other, right before going into a critical battle, the culminating battle. The command sent me a message of use the satellite phone and call your wife. From a cave in Afghanistan, I was able to call my wife, and she had gone in for an 8th-month checkup. There were complications, and the doctor said, "You're having the baby in 2 hours. Don't leave the hospital grounds." So who does she call? She calls those other wives from that team, and they rally around her in the delivery room. And by the time that message got around the world to me, they were already home from the hospital. So my daughter was several months old before I got home to hold her.
Yeah.
But these wives do, the impact on the family throughout these repeated deployments. It wears on them as well. It impacts your kids. You miss a lot of birthdays and significant moments. And then when you are home, you try to make up for that as best you can.
In my description I marked in the few pages I read through very fast and skimmed, I marked something. There's little things that always stand out to me. And when I said you use this more than this, I'm going to read it so I don't.
Okay.
Officers are trained in all areas of special operations, just as enlisted personnel, but though expected to be proficient overall, their job is to lead the subject matter experts rather than be the experts themselves. For some reason, I love that statement. You don't have to know everything, but you got to lead the person that knows everything. So really, it's a delegation, but you got to know how to delegate all of that through all of this.
Yeah, it's about trusting and empowering your team. We had cross-trained significantly, and by that I'm talking, our medical specialists. These guys they go through some of the toughest, longest training. They work in the emergency rooms around the U.S. And as part of their training. So I joke about they're the best dentists, doctors, and veterinarians in the world practicing without a license. Our special forces medics get basic dentistry, basic optometry. They get introduction to veterinary medicine because they would help doctor, animals in the case of horses and things like that, or sheep and goats and cattle, on some of these missions around the world, because it's a way of helping build rapport with that local population that you're working with. That really what is life-changing and helps empower those families in that region that you're working. So these special forces medics, I don't have to do the field surgery, but I damn sure better be able to do the tactical trauma care of rendering, aid to myself or to a buddy, or helping him triage casualties. And so that has been, a great leadership lesson for me is I use that guy as an example, and there's so many others of trusting and empowering your team? Do they have the resources they need? They're like, hey, Mark, we need a medical clinic. We need more antibiotics dropped in here. Can you help emphasize or elevate that issue to make sure they have the resources they need? And again, there's dozens of other examples, but to me, it's about trusting and empowering your subordinates to make them successful, because it's going to make the overall team and mission successful.
Stated at the beginning of this, I love the way, and I don't know that people necessarily see it this way. There are two wars. There were two wars in Afghanistan. This is about the first one. That's what your book said. This is about the first one. The second war in Afghanistan lasted 19 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And that has kind of been people more familiar. So this is about the first one. There had to be, you used a lot of people in Afghanistan. You became allies and enlisted the help of interpreters, guys that guided you to defeat the Taliban. They had to know in the back of their head, and excuse me if this shit goes wrong, they're going to know. If you didn't defeat the Taliban, if those Taliban are allowed back in, they know who these people are that helped you. Am I?
Yeah. Yeah. They knew each other. That's when we got on the ground again, meeting with General Dostum and Commander Atta and Commander Moakek, the leaders of the Uzbeks, the Tajiks, and the Hazaras. They had been openly fighting the Taliban and Al-Qaeda because they had suffered horrifically under the Taliban's militant Islam extremism and what they had imposed on the population. So that it became a fire hose of information meeting with them. They're explaining, hey, here's the Taliban commander, here's his name, here's where he's from, and the history, of not just their military strengths and capabilities, but some of the stories were just heartbreaking particularly on the Hazara people, because now you're talking about a Sunni and Shia split. They were almost to the level of ethnic cleansing on the Hazara people in there, where they'd wipe out entire villages and drive these people, either kill them or drive them from their homes. And you saw the carnage of that on the battlefield. And but I also want to say, it's in special forces, they talk about we can come in and say, hey, we're the Americans and we're here and we're going to do it this way. And that's not typically going to work. And it's about, hey, you tell me what's the plan? What can be done? You understand this far better than I do. And how can we help you? What do you see that strategy can be? And General Dostum and Atta and these other commanders, they put forth the strategy. So then it became, well, how can we support their plan? And there's an adage, in some of our required reading in special forces, that's attributed to T.E. Lawrence of Arabia during the First World War. He's a British officer, fluent in Arabic, that became an advisor to the Arabs during that uprising as they fought against the Turks across the Middle East. And the adage is, better that they do it on their own poorly than that I do it for them. And I know I'm butchering that, but that's so because it has to be their plan, right? Because they understand the situation.
Well, it's I think we have a tendency, and I see it in our government and probably in military, where all we know is our Western culture. That's all we know. I think it's easy for us to sit here and go, well, if we just throw a bunch of troops in, obviously we can train their army and instill democracy, and they'll just take it and run, and it'll all be fine. I'm butchering that too, but yeah. But culturally, I do not believe we can grasp in our Western culture how completely different the ins and outs of their everyday culture are. Just like you said, that's why you go to them and say, the hell do we do here? Because we can't think in terms of Western culture to try and help them. It's got to be.
Yeah, it is an nearly impossible gap to portray the things that we take for granted every day here in the United States of America. How fortunate we are to be able to travel from city to city, right? Across county lines without being stopped by illegal criminal gangs or checkpoints, or bombs alongside the road, or hell, even a road to drive on that's paved versus a dirt road, to have a bridge across a stream. So all these things that we take for granted that allow commerce to happen and have an education and the opportunity to build a successful business. Think of a country that is so utterly devastated from all the decades of war. It's not just you individually that may be depressed, but it's your entire family. Because of the economic circumstances, the poverty, it's a struggle to survive every day, to feed your family in that environment, and now feed an entire community. And to have that family or a community to survive, you really have an entire nation in Afghanistan suffering from post-traumatic stress, just because of the threat of being killed, either accidentally or kids still stepping on a landmine that's been buried for years somewhere in an area, or just the random violence that these armed groups perpetrate on each other to extort money or resources from other groups. And so it is a huge gap for most Americans to be able to think in terms of what you would do in that situation. It is a fight for survival for those individuals, those families, those groups. And so they have incredible, strong family bonds. That is very impressive to see. They have nothing, and when you're a guest invited into their home, they will cook up the best meal that they can because of their family's honor. And if I take a large portion, there's some family member is going hungry, but yet you have to balance some of that with them. But sharing meals with them, we were welcomed into their homes as guests. I've gone back a number of times and been welcomed back into their home like a long lost son that's returning. And it's just been incredibly powerful and humbling to visit those folks and to see them grow over the years. Interpreters or other commanders, they went on, they became businessmen in that country or got their degrees, and some of them became doctors. And just see the thirst for education and opportunity, and to see what they're going to do in the future. It's very inspirational.
Yeah. I've been working on getting you on here for a while. Over a year ago, I'd messaged you and said, hey, and I'm, by the way, in this, whatever you want to share with me, I'm throwing any sort of politics out the window on this. That's what I do here. But yeah. I contacted you right when all of a sudden we just left Afghanistan. And I went, in my head, I'm thinking, this isn't good. Hey, I'll bet Mark has an opinion on this. And I contacted you and I got a single line message back, said, I'd love to talk, Flint, but I can't right now. You have been busy. That was a bad thing as far as the people. When I said these people had to know if this goes wrong, they know who I am. That was the big worry when we just all of a sudden left Afghanistan. Taliban just moved right back in. That had to affect you and the people you knew and what all went on.
Yeah, that was tough. As I said, I'd gone back a number of times in uniform as a defense contractor. I'd gone back as a private American citizen doing humanitarian aid efforts on the ground to help with clean drinking water and schools and things. It wasn't just me. It was very tough a year ago. It was tough for our broader special forces community. It was tough for intelligence officers and State Department officials and aid workers and just people that had spent a large part of our adult lives trying to help rebuild a place that's been so utterly devastated. And you can get into a whole conversation about the futility of that and the strategy and the politics. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people that I knew and trusted, people that worked with us right after 9/11, that were trying to be part of the solution to help pull their country out of that. It was tough. It was tough. And so there were thousands of veterans from all the services, not just the special forces. There were intelligence officers, State Department workers, aid groups that all came together in an ad hoc manner to try to do what we firmly believed was morally right as an obligation to help friends, help people that we had recruited because of their skills or qualifications to try to help be leaders within that country. And we knew what would happen to them. There was a valiant fight to try to keep the Taliban from coming back. And it comes back to leadership at all levels. And some of that, again, may be the cultural challenges that they have there. But, there were some key leaders that were trying to rally the troops, rally their police and security forces and to try to make a stand in different communities. And horrible stories there of some betrayal or treachery, and they're forced to flee from that area. A number of them went down fighting. People I knew from 20 years ago, I was getting calls, going, "Hey, can you help? Can you help?" And I admittedly kind of turned some anger into action and got involved again and worked to try to help bring aid or awareness to people that had stood beside our country right after 9/11 in our darkest hour. We were successful in getting some of the folks out through an incredible effort there at Kabul, and the whole world saw that. It was incredibly stressful on me personally, again, and my family. And fortunately, we were successful in getting a number of them out to other countries or out to the United States.
Man, we left a lot of stuff over there too, didn't we? I know that's a real shallow thing,
Yeah.
but as you're talking, we left a lot of everything.
Yeah.
There.
Well, are we having a breakfast bourbon, a lunch bourbon, or a dinner bourbon here? So we're getting into some topics, but we did. How can I politely say this?
You don't have horrible, to be polite. You don't have
horrible mistakes were made.
Yeah.
And to pull the rug out from under an ally completely. Mm-hmm. Our country needs allies. We can't go it alone. We have to have allies. Just like the special forces, when we approach our mission, it's by, with, or through a local partner that has a deeper understanding of the situation or problem set. But our country, with these complex challenges around the world, we got to have allies. And to see how a key ally was abandoned and that equipment lost, it was heartbreaking. As I said, a number of veterans and groups getting together to help do what was morally right, to try to help some people that had stood beside us in our darkest hour. That was what I felt compelled to do and get involved in. I'm still involved in that, helping support the resettlement of these Afghans that are trying to legally immigrate here. We can talk about that legal process if you want, or folks can read about it. It's just, it takes an average of over 900 days to get an application approved through our bureaucratic processes. And it's heartbreaking, but I know if there's Afghans, in different communities around the US, I encourage people to, talk with them if they want to get involved to help these veteran groups that are helping these Afghan allies. There's a number of groups out there. I will tell you that it was also tough. I worked with Project Dynamo. They helped to rescue several hundred American citizens or legal permanent residents that were abandoned, and they have gone back on the ground to work with folks to bring out American citizens that were left behind as well. So it's a tough topic.
Yeah, it is. And I know it is for you. I knew that through a mutual friend, and I knew that, and I appreciate you sharing. I just think it's something people should know. And something else people should know is this, and everything we do here on According to Flint is brought to you by Pendleton Whiskey, our good friends at Pendleton Whiskey. I have to lead with that, Mark, because that's the deal, But I got to tell you, you gave me a bottle of Horse Soldier bourbon when you had come to my show, the NFR, and I said, man, I'm displaying this. And you said, bullshit, you're drinking it, and I'll send you more. But you and Bob had signed that bottle, and it's been on my shelf since that day. And this week, you sent me another bottle of Horse Soldier bourbon, and I want to show you something. Again, this will violate every sponsor. No. Yeah. I want to show you something. Some of it is gone, Mark. Some of it is gone.
Well, that's what we want folks to enjoy, is celebrate the special moments, the challenges in their life. And we hope they'll choose and celebrate because of that story behind Horse Soldier bourbon. And these bottles are forged by World Trade Center steel.
There you go.
We were gifted a chunk of steel. It was melted down, and it's the mold that shapes every one of these bottles. The bottle I'm holding here and the bottle you got there, and that thousands of fans across the U.S. have purchased. I joke with them, I need you to knock the top off of it and share it out with friends. Celebrate that special moment at the college rodeo finals, with your family and friends, whatever that may be. But the brand has done tremendous. We're in 18 states now. I will also share with you, since January, we've been in Montana, and Montana has blown up for us with bourbon sales.
We drink a lot. We drink a lot in Montana, Mark. You're welcome. It's just it's how we
Thank
go.
you. I've had fun. I got up there last October. Was up there trying my hand at elk hunting. It was too early and it was too warm, so the elk hadn't come down yet. So we were enjoying just the local, cafes for breakfast and just meeting with local folks. I got to do a Montana poker ride, which was fun. A local ranch and family invited me to come out and let me borrow a good horse.
Stirrup, you adjusted the stirrups.
Adjusted the stirrups on it. But they let me borrow their daughter's horse that couldn't make the ride that day, and just had a great time meeting that family and others. I thought it was going to be just a handful of families. I think they had over 200 people turn out for that poker ride, so I bought a few bottles of Horse Soldier bourbon and brought those along on the trail ride. And it was just fun meeting folks from Montana and riding up across the beautiful ridges and just having a great time. But we're in 18 states now for distribution. That's Florida, Virginia, New York, North Carolina. We are in Pennsylvania as well, as relatively new. But then we're in Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, Kansas, where I'm at. And then we're in Texas, Arizona, California, and Nevada. And our two newest states are Washington and Colorado. And so we're having a great ride, traveling around, sharing the story, meeting with folks, doing a whiskey and war story kind of event with ticketed groups, and having fun, sharing about the military background, but then this award-winning bourbon. Well, I'm gonna tout on it for a little bit. All three of our bourbon offerings, each won double gold in the San Francisco World Spirits Festival this last spring, and that's considered one of the prestigious competitions. It is unanimous. They don't know your brand name. They don't know your beautiful packaging. It is 100% off the juice in that bottle. And all three of our core Horse Soldier bourbon products each won double gold in their own category. Our premium straight, the one you've got there, it won double gold 2 years ago in San Francisco. And so our marketing folks aren't quite sure how to get their head around that yet, that we won triple double golds. We're not sure there's another small craft bourbon brand or even the big boys that have swept the competition with all of their entries winning double gold. So we're really proud of this bourbon and the brand. It's taken off. We invite folks to come see us down in the St. Petersburg, Florida, Tampa, Florida area. We got a fine dining restaurant and saloon called the Urban Still House that showcases our brand there. Please call ahead for reservations. We're backed up 1 to 2 weeks. We got some big dreams. Over the next 3 years, we're going to build out our own distillery in Somerset, Kentucky. It's about an hour and a half south of Lexington in the southeastern part of the state there. We're going to have the Horse Soldier Bourbon Farms there. And we're building that out over the next 3 years. And that community has just been incredible, supporting us, anxiously waiting on that endeavor.
Well, my tasting of it was pretty formal and official. I have a maintenance man that loves bourbon. And after work yesterday, I waved him across the parking lot and I showed him. He said, "Man, I've seen the bottle displayed in your place." I said, "Should we try it?" So we sat out on my patio on the big ice cube.
Yeah.
And we poured a little bit. As I said, I can't go in blind with Mark. I got to be able to tell him if I hate it or love it, which I had a pretty good idea. So we had one and we looked at each other and he said, "Yeah, we might need another pour to make sure it's okay." So
repeated testing for quality assurance.
You have to do it the right way. But I will say, just for sponsorship purposes, we were sitting in Pendleton whiskey lawn chairs to do that, to see best of both. So I will say, between you and me, Mark, really good.
Well, I appreciate
really
that.
good.
I appreciate that. We're going to surprise you. We want fans. We want this to be their go-to, like I said, to celebrate the special occasions, the special moments, or just the daily, routine drinkers, if you will. But
would that be me? Am I a daily? Okay. Yeah.
So we joke. We've got so you've got our premium straight that's called a high rye in that. So it's corn and then rye and a little bit of barley, 87 proof. And then our other two bourbons are a wheated bourbon. So it's corn and then wheat as that flavoring grain with some barley. We've got our signature small batch that's a handful, about 8 to 10 barrels blended together. And we always cut it down to 95 proof to honor our Special Forces team in a subtle way that was known as the 9-5 team. And then our other product with the silver label on it is the Big Brother, Big Sister. It is the barrel strength. It's just filtered for particulates straight out of the cask. That's what our distiller was going for. It's as Mother Nature intended. So it is, you're going to see that vary. It's going to be, in the high 115 or above, up to 125. I think I've seen the highest 126. It's going to be at that 120 or above area in there.
Be careful. It'll sneak up on you a little bit.
Yeah, it's just a great sipper on a big rock, and just let it chill, and just easy, smooth sipper. And we're so proud of that bourbon. During COVID, it came out as it was Whiskey Advocate ranked it as 50th of the top bourbons to drink in the world. And we joke because of that high proof. I grew up on a farm and ranch community. I choked down a little bit of livestock dust, maybe ate some dirt as a kid occasionally. The military shot me full of vaccines, and I drink that barrel strength Horse Soldier bourbon occasionally with just a little sip for medicinal purposes. And thankfully I did not get the COVID, but our lawyers say we can't say that. So
it's science. I follow the science, Mark. That's all I can do. So
yeah, just follow it. But I appreciate the opportunity. Our bourbon pairs well with a book called Swords of Lightning.
And I'm looking forward to continue the few pages I've been able to knock out since I got home. But I do want to say, before I let you go, and I told you this when you were on my show, and I don't know if you remember, I have a very, when I first saw the movie 12 Strong, then met you, there was a deep connection for me, because now my former father-in-law, but still consider him one of the greatest men I've ever met, and close with him, was a Green Beret Special Forces guy himself, eventually ended up in the Border Patrol and patrolled the southern border on horseback by himself.
Uh-huh.
And up at our small place we had in Montana, we had water crossings, we had an arena, and hosted a Special Forces horse training 2-day camp, so to speak. They came in to Choteau, Montana. We hosted about 25 of them at our place. He taught them how to pack a horse, how to ride a horse across water. It was just a great thing to witness. And when I had the opportunity to meet you, I just felt a connection there, an admiration for that. And I've witnessed him training. And it was based on the fact, I remember him telling me, after 9/11, our soldiers were forced to use horses with the Afghanis, and I owe it to them to train some of them. So I just, I hope he listens to this. I'm sending him a book. So what you did, it really, kickstarted some of that, and I just appreciate it. So.
No, I appreciate that. I know there's been a number of courses and different groups host training for our guys to help prep them to go over. They incorporated horses into our Special Forces course now, so that down in North Carolina, so they get introduced to pack animals. It is still a thing despite the 21st century. When we go work in some of these far-flung regions of the world, we send 12 guys so that we don't have to send 200 or 2,000. And that may be the mode of transportation occasionally that you may use.
Yeah. One more thing. I'm going to let you go. I turn in 2 pages. Thank you for the personalization of my book. The next page, the book starts with, it's Isaiah 6:8. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" And I said, "Here am I, send me." And that's you guys. And we have a lot of people on here that people consider heroes, but you're a great hero, Mark, and we appreciate it.
Well, had an incredible team. Just these guys in the Special Forces community, not just that team, the others I served with, they're just great Americans. We're going to surprise you, with what the capabilities and training are. And just that's been an honor, and a highlight of my life was to work with the team, the 595 team, and some of the other teams throughout my career. But this book, Swords of Lightning, people can get it wherever books are sold. If they want to check out our website, swordsoflightning.com, they can order or purchase an autographed copy there. And if they're wanting to do a bulk order, a bulk order or something, they can reach out to us and we'll connect them with the publisher. But we're having a great run with the book. It blew up to #1 new release on Amazon, and we sold through most of those copies, and we just got our publisher reprinted, and they're getting stocked up again. So we've just begun to help promote the book in a bourbon, and that's been fun doing that as well. And sharing the story about the incredible experience right after 9/11, just reminding people how united our country was back then, and that we have more in common than what separates us.
Yeah. I still think you're better looking than Chris Hemsworth. I mean,
my wife assures me of that. Yeah.
I'm sure she does. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you, man.
Hey, thank you for having me on, Flint.
It's
been great.